Hey everyone, Chris here with Ignited by Nature and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about optics. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about binoculars and how to pick binoculars. Now, when I first started, my first guess was, hey, buy the biggest and baddest pair of binoculars that you can get. You want those 12s, those 15s, those 18s, you just want to be able to see far, right? I'm a Western hunter, I need to see far. That's not always the case. They do have their purpose, these larger binoculars over here, but in most cases, you're going to want something more like these 8x42s or these 8x32s. In this video, I'm going to break down the different types of binoculars. Now, there's definitely more than this that I have in front of me, but specifically, these are the ones that you're going to want for outdoor adventuring, birding, hunting, and things like that. So with that being said, let's just go over these tips and tactics for picking out binoculars, and let's get into it. So first off here, let's talk about the pocket binoculars. These are underrated binoculars. They're very popular in Europe, but they're not as popular in the United States. A lot of Europeans like more compact binoculars. They're doing a lot of birding, adventure hiking, just hiking around during the day. And for anything like that, if you're not a hunter or you're not serious into bird watching, but you want something that's pretty awesome and fits into your pocket, hence the name pocket binoculars, then something like this is going to be awesome. Now, these are like $1,200 or $1,300. So you don't want to start off with these. These are Swarovski CL pockets, and these are the 10x25 models. So Swarovski makes top of the line binoculars. They're honestly my favorite binocular. And to be honest, I haven't tried out Zeiss or Leica, but I haven't felt the need. Once I tried these out, they were perfect for me, so that's what I've stuck with. But everyone's different, everyone has different eyes, so I definitely recommend trying out Leica and Zeiss because they might fit your eyes better. The contrast and coloring on those lenses and the coatings that they use might be better for your eyes, but for me, it's Swarovski all the way. So with that being said, these are top of the line pocket binoculars, and pocket binoculars are nice because they're very lightweight. They're typically 350 grams. That works out to be around like 12.5 ounces. They're super light. I also have these Bushnells. I bought these for my daughter when we go out scouting, or she goes with me to do gear reviews and we're looking for elk. She goes, "Daddy, can we go look for elks?" And she grabs her binoculars. It's super cute. And she still calls them elks. But these little Bushnells were like 20 bucks. So definitely a lot of entry-level options. And I wasn't going to let my daughter use these. These are $1,200 or $1,300, right? Like I said, and I don't want her breaking these. So she can toss these around, she can drop them, she can have fun, pretend like she's looking at stuff, and they're only 20 bucks. Then I have these Nikons. These are waterproof. They're the Trailblazers. I think they were like 65 to 80 bucks on Amazon. I just got them as another demo piece. And the one cool thing about pocket binoculars is they're very forgiving in their interpupillary distance, or IPD. So typically they range from 50 to 75 millimeters. So if you're looking at getting your kids into hunting, or you're looking at just carrying something that's going to be pretty versatile that you can just hand to someone, they're going to work with people with small faces, and they have that nice compact form factor. So you can just pop them in your pocket. They'll even fit in your jean pockets or your hunting pocket. And so they're nice and lightweight. You don't even know they're there. And I would suggest that if you're going to get a pocket binocular, unless you're really into pocket binoculars and you want the best, get Swarovski or Leica or Zeiss. But if not, you can get by with something like this and have a great experience. The viewing quality of these Nikons is actually really good. Another thing I'll say about pocket binoculars in general is they're typically going to be 8 to 7 power, sometimes 10 power. These are actually 10 power, but typically you're looking at 6, 7, 8, or 10 power. So anywhere in between there is kind of where they're going to fall. So that's kind of what you're looking at when you're looking at a pocket binocular, is a really compact 8x25 or a 7x20. And there's just a lot of cool options. The only thing I don't like about these is the image isn't as immersed as if you have something bigger like this. It's definitely more just for like getting a better look at something while you're on the go. But in general, they're super easy to handhold. You don't need to worry about image stabilization or anything like that. And they're just really awesome overall. You can just stick them in your pocket, forget about them. And when you need them, you want to take a better look at something, you just pull them out and they're right there. I do like them. I don't find that I use them a lot. I'm typically using my EL ranges, which are an 8x42, and that's kind of my sweet spot. That's where I like to be. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick is that these are definitely a daytime binocular. And anytime you have any cloudy situations, kind of like I'm in right now, a little bit overcast, or say you're in the dense timber, they're not going to be as bright. The image isn't going to be as clear. You're going to have some issues. You're just going to have an overall degradation quality of the overall image that you're looking through because the exit pupil is so small. So on these 8x25s, you have like a 3.13 millimeter exit pupil. And then if you go down to the 10x25s, sorry, these are actually 10x25s, but these 8x25s here would have the 3.13 millimeter exit pupil, and these drop down to 2.5. Once you get into those lower light situations or atmospheric pressure changes or weather changes, the image quality is just not going to be as good in a lot of these binoculars. Next on the list is the compact binoculars. These are probably one of the most popular binoculars because overall they're lightweight. They're not as light as the compact, but they're not as heavy as a full-size binocular. So they're kind of that great middle ground that you can carry around with you if you're a backpacker, a hiker, or a hunter on the move like you do backcountry hunting. They're going to be nice and lightweight. You can put them in a bino pack and not feel them, or wear them around your neck. And they typically range from 30 to 35 millimeters. I've never personally tried the 35 millimeter compacts, but I have tried 32 and 30s, and that's what I have in front of me here. I have these Vortex. These are a 10x32, and these are like my truck binoculars that I used to use a lot. I just threw them in the truck, didn't care about them. The eye cups, this is what I'm talking about, Vortex. Like, they're cheap, they have a great warranty. I can send these in, but look at, I can just twist these, and the eye cups don't twist. I have to actually pinch down on them and twist them up to get them to twist. So I have to send these in for warranty. Vortex has a great warranty, but their stuff isn't always great, especially when you buy their cheaper stuff like these Diamondbacks. Now, typically these optics, the compact class of binoculars, range from 450 grams to 650 grams. So let's weigh another one over here. These are top of the line Swarovski NL Pure 8x32s. And these weigh 1 pound, 9.3 ounces. So just under 1.5 pounds. So that's pretty cool. And they are lightweight. I love these. I just don't find that I use them as much because I have FOMO about overall brightness. So I like binoculars with larger exit pupils. And that's the one con about the compact line, is typically as you use these compacts, you have like the 8x32s. They're going to have a 4 millimeter exit pupil, which is comparable to like a 10x42. They're not going to perform as good in low light as they are as like a full size binocular. So when you use these binoculars, they're going to be great daytime binoculars. They're going to do well in overcast situations like this too. But when it starts getting darker or you start getting into that deep timber, you are going to lose some image quality. Obviously, these are Swarovski. They still work really well. But I would say if you're going to be doing a lot of late night glassing, like looking at the stars, you're going to be maybe hunting during low light situations or hiking around at night in low light situations, and you want to get a better image of a bird or an animal, these aren't going to be the binoculars for you. You're going to want to move on to something like these 42 line or some of those bigger objective binoculars with a small magnification. Those are going to be great for nighttime observation and things like that. But for a daytime lightweight binocular that you can carry around with you and not really feel as much as something like this full size, these are great. The other one I really like here is the Maven B.3. It's a 6x30 binocular, and it was just very fun to use out in the field, especially when I'm walking around. It's very stable. It's almost like having image stabilization in your hands, and I was able to get good looks at things under 1,000 yards. Absolutely great. I have the eye cups and everything on them. I'm not going to take them off, but these weigh 1 pound, 1.4 ounces, so just over a pound. So these can be very lightweight. Obviously, when you get into that higher end glass and stuff, sometimes they can be heavier, sometimes they can be lighter, just depends on the optic. I think when you start getting into these like high power binoculars, these Swarovskis are actually a lot lighter than these Mavens. So just to sum up the compact line, the compacts are going to be great for anyone who's interested in doing anything during the day that's not really worried about low light. They're still going to work in a lot of low light situations. You're just not going to get as much detail. And that's where magnification really comes in over the objective size. The higher the magnification, the more detail, but then the higher in objective size you go, the less field of view you get. So in these NL Piers, you have a 450 foot field of view. And then on these Maven B5s even, it's a really high field of view. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was like 450, but I'll put it up on the computer right now. We'll take a look. They have a really high field of view. And even these cheap Diamondbacks too, they have a pretty good field of view. Now, as far as price ranges for these, they can range anywhere from like $50 all the way up to $2,800, which is what I bought these for. They might even be more expensive now. I know they're like $2,850 or $2,900 when you step up to the 10s. I personally like the 8s because of the larger exit pupil. You're getting a 4mm exit pupil versus when you jump to the 10s, you're only getting a, 3.5mm exit pupil or something like that. Most people, they're going to be comfortable in this, mid-tier $400 to $600 range. I believe these cost around $500 depending on which model you get. You could get them as low as $350 if they have any sales or something like that. I'll definitely put some of the prices at the current time, which is 11/23/2025. So prices change. One nice thing I will say about buying Swarovski is they go up in value a lot. So I bought all of these at a cheaper price and they've gone up in value. So hopefully I'll be able to make my money back selling them used because I'm not going to keep them all. I just bought them to test over the last few years so that I can give a real world honest review on things. And so when I buy things, I test them for a long time before I actually make a review. Next up on the list, we're going to talk about the full size binocular line. In front of me here, I have the 42mm binoculars. These ones can get pretty heavy. They range from like 2 to 4 pounds, depending on what you're working with as far as the overall objective size, how big the binocular is, and things like that. But typically, the 42 models are the most common. So in front of me, I have a 10x42. They obviously range in size quite a bit. So 10x42 Suray. And this is a newer binocular that came out. It's all right. I don't know. I tested it out. I mean, I wouldn't buy it personally, but if you wanted to try something out on the cheap that's similar to like a Vortex lower end optic, this is totally something that you could check out. And it does have some nice build features. The rubber armor, the eye cups feel nice. The focus wheel's a little sloppy. There's a lot of things I don't like, but for, a binocular under $200, it's not bad. These, on the other hand, are like, these are the 12x42s. So these are like 3,100. They went up in cost. And if you're going to go with a NL Pier and you're looking between the 8s, the 10s, and the 12s, the 10s, you're getting an exit pupil of 4.1. So basically, it's going to perform like these 8s. You're going to have pretty good low light performance, better detail than the 8s. The 8s are going to be the best, but I would say why not get the 12s that have a really wide field of view? You're getting more twilight factor, which is basically just looking at the overall magnification and basically how good you can see something, so the detail. But with the 12s, you're getting a lot of great features, but you are losing brightness. So these only have a 3.5 millimeter exopupil, which means they are darker. And you do notice it if you try out the 12s next to the 8s or the 10s, you're going to notice that they're just a little bit darker. So keep that in mind. The higher in magnification you go, usually the darker image, unless you have a larger objective lens. Keep in mind, as you go up in magnification and go down in objective size, you're going to lose image brightness and you're going to lose field of view. That's typically the case for most binoculars. So as we move down here, you'll lose field of view. But like I said, these NL 8x32s and the 10x32s are kind of freaks of nature in the fact that they actually have a really wide field of view. And if you look in comparison to a lot of other compact binoculars, their field of view is still really wide, if not wider than some of these 42 models. So that's not typically the case, but it is something to keep in mind if you're looking at NL. They do have wider fields of view than other binoculars. So yeah, in general, these are going to be the binoculars that you want for a lot of things like Western hunting. They're going to be your all-around binocular. You're going to be able to spot pretty much anything out west. Unless you're doing scouting, I wouldn't recommend anything larger than an 8 or a 10 or a 12, right? And honestly, for most people, it's going to be an 8 or a 10x42. And for most hunters, they're going to pick 10x42. Me, I like 8x42 because I like having that wide field of view and I like having the brightest image. But that's just me. Everyone's different. These are still going to fit in a chest pack really comfortably, and you can carry them around your neck. You are going to get more fatigue carrying these around, so I would recommend mounting these on a tripod. I even put my NL 8x32s on a tripod. It's just a lot more stable. It's a lot more clean. You get a better image. You can digiscope a lot better. You get really nice, clear images when you use binoculars with a tripod, and I highly recommend it. You're going to spot a lot more things. You're going to catch movement because you don't have the shake of your hands or just the jitters that you get when you're holding binoculars with your hands. You can get stable and put them on your knees and do things like that, but honestly, I would just recommend putting them on a tripod. Next up, we have the large magnification. Now, everything that I have is for hunting, so keep that in mind. A lot of people like these larger binoculars for astronomy. They like to look at the stars and things like that. I think there was a guy in one of my videos that said I need to start pointing stuff at the moon. I can't today, dude, but down the road, I will keep that in mind for my reviews because I want to help everyone out. You know, I like hunting. I like the outdoors, but, you know, not just hunters use binoculars. Birders use binoculars. Outdoor adventurers use binoculars. Military use binoculars. Everyone uses binoculars. So I try to be as informative as I can and help everyone out. With these high-powered binoculars, these are going to be great for scouting situations. For any kind of Western hunting, unless you're like out in the desert and you're like familiar with the area, or you're new to the area and you're scouting on a hunting trip, so you're spending the first 2 days scouting, I would recommend bringing these because they're awesome for during the day scouting, like spotting things bedded down in the shade, things like that. But their low light performance is not that great. So typically when you calculate out the overall brightness, or you are calculating out the exopupil, you take the magnification and divide it by the objective lens or vice versa, and it's going to give you like, 5.3 or 4.2, depending on the magnification and the objective size, right? So the problem with going large on the magnification is when you do that calculation, which obviously it works out to the overall aperture of the binocular, but it's going to make that exopupil smaller. So the image isn't going to be as bright. Most people have a 2.5 millimeter pupil, so their eye dilates to like 2.5 or 2 millimeters during the day. So during the day, that's not really going to matter. And that's why these are so awesome for daytime observation. So that would be for like birding, scouting, looking for animals, for hunting, or doing any kind of long range observation. These are going to be great. So you don't have to just be looking at animals. They will work for a lot of other situations. They're also great for looking across a canyon and getting more detail on a deer or an elk. If you're into score and stuff like that, you'll be able to take a look at the animal's antlers and, get a better idea of what you're looking at if you're into that. I'm not really into that. I don't care about score. If it's legal, I'm probably shooting it and getting back to my family. That's just me. Everyone's different. But I got into hunting a lot later in life, and I got into hunting based off of reading Lewis and Clark books and trapping books. In college, I got into the era of Jefferson and Jackson and started getting into all the mountain man stuff. And I just wanted to learn how to do it all. So for me, it's just about like processing all my own food and, getting everything organic and doing it all myself. That's the most important thing to me. I know a lot of people just drop it off at the butcher. I like doing it all myself. So that's just me. All right. Side tangent done. So in front of me here, I only have Maven and Swarovski. I have the 14x52 NLPs, which I love. And I have the Maven B5s, which I love. And then I have the Maven C4s, which honestly, sorry, Maven, these are garbage. I don't like them. They feel cheap. They feel Chinese made. I've never really tried many of their lower quality stuff. I've only tried their high quality stuff and I love it. But this the bridge, when you're glassing or you put any kind of weight on this, it just comes down super easily. So that's annoying, especially when you're digiscoping. The eye cups twist out super easily. So if you want to digiscope, they don't work well. Maybe I just got a bad one, but honestly, I'm just not a big fan of these C.4s. So I wouldn't recommend them unless you're on a tight budget. They're going to work. But I also noticed that these were a lot darker than these 18x56s. So I don't know. The coatings are different. Definitely the glass is a little bit different. And on their website, they said they have a like 10 to 20% difference, but it's noticeable in these. So like I said, I wouldn't recommend these. But if you're in the market for a good pair of 15s or 18s, these B.5s are at a reasonable price and they don't cost $3,800. So yeah, you have $400 to $500. Then you have $1,800, right? Or $1,850, so almost $2,000. And these are like mid-level, maybe above mid-level, like just below top of the line. They're really good. If you don't want to spend $3,800, probably $4,000 after tax. I actually didn't pay that. I paid like $34.99. So full price, like before tariffs. So I'm actually probably going to sell them for $3,500 and make my money back if I don't keep them. These are one of the ones I'm probably going to keep. Now that I love my EL ranges, I'm probably going to sell all the other NLPs and just keep my EL ranges and these as my backpack bino, right? But typically with these, you're going to have exit pupils from 2.5 millimeters all the way up to like 3.5. So they're going to do really good with detail, but the image is just going to be a little darker, but you are going to be able to see detail. However, with that being said, these magnifications, if you point them out up at the stars, you're going to be able to observe a lot of cool things if you're into astronomy, right? You're going to be able to see like the satellites orbiting Jupiter or something like that, or you're going to be able to see different stars in different colors. So these larger magnifications with the bigger objectives are going to be really great for astronomers. For birders, these are going to be good if you're further away, but the field of view when you get into these bigger binoculars is going to be really shallow. So you're not going to be able to see as wide as you would be in these 42s, right? So if you're scanning or you're following birds, it's going to be harder to do on these. On a tripod, it's going to be a little easier. But typically a lot of birders are going to like these 42s or the 32s because they're going to be able to like hold them stable or mount them on a tripod and they're going to be able to scan really easy. And you're going to have a really wide field of view. So overall, these are going to be heavier than a lot of binoculars. Typically they're like 30% heavier than the 42 or the full size models. And they're just going to be a lot bulkier. So I typically only carry these in my pack. And that's what I would recommend doing. I would have these in the top lid or in the top of your pack and carry something lighter on your chest. Some people do carry 15s on their chest and they just run 15s. But I will say you're definitely losing out a lot in field of view. The overall depth of field is different. And it's just going to be harder to find your targets when you spot them because you don't have that wide field of view. You have that higher magnification. But once you get dialed in, you're going to get a lot more detail. So these are going to be good for people who want to sit in glass, who want to scout, who just want to look far away, that's what these are for, and that's what I would recommend them for. So the last thing I wanted to emphasize here is that with these high-powered binoculars, you're going to want to mount them on a tripod. See, it's got a tripod mount here. These both have the tripod mount already on here, and you're just going to want to do it because it's going to make a stable image. You're going to be able to digiscope if you want to, and your overall ability to spot game is just going to dramatically improve if you mount these on a tripod. These are specifically made for tripods. In general, I wouldn't recommend hand holding them, but you could get away with doing it real quickly, but long term, it's not going to work. Tripod, 100%. Same with any of these. I would recommend a tripod except for the pockets, but the compacts and the full size, tripod is always best, but you can get away with hand holding these, especially if you're not, trying to spot a bedded deer or something like that. You can hand hold all these. So that kind of sums up the high powered binoculars. Like I said, they're going to be great for anyone wanting to look at long distance objects or spot game at a distance or get a better look at something. But you're going to want them on a tripod, and they're going to be best during the day. And, this is my opinion, and that's just what I found. But I guarantee if you look stuff like this up, you'll find that, they're for hunting and outdoor activities, they're going to be better during the day. But on that caveat, if you want to do some astronomy, they're going to be great for seeing that detail in the stars. So a lot of astronomy people like these higher magnification and higher objective lenses to see images in the sky. Okay, so we're getting closer to the end here. Now, unfortunately, I'm on a tighter budget these days, so I only really have the budget for one pair of binoculars, and this is actually the pair of binoculars that I use. These are the EL Range 8x42s, and they're honestly awesome. Like, I was very impressed, and I honestly didn't notice that much of a difference between these and the 8x42 NL Piers. And so I'm probably selling the 8x42s after I do a couple reviews that I want to do with them, but I don't use them anymore. I use these. The field of view is still awesome. It's like 455 feet at 1,000 yards. So these are 477. I'm not really losing that much field of view. And the brightness is about the same, if not a little better. So I think they have it as a 5.25. I think they're both should be the same, but for some reason, sometimes these seem a little brighter. And overall, I'm just really impressed with the image quality. The edge-to-edge clarity is just pretty much almost the same. You might be able to notice a little difference if you're getting picky, but I haven't noticed anything that's made me think that, oh, I want to bring these over these. And being a rifle and muzzleloader hunter, I honestly need these a lot more than I do these. And I like not having to carry one of those little golf range finders, the handholds. I used to carry that all the time on my bino pack, and now I'm just saving weight by carrying these, which honestly, they're a little heavier than these, but you're getting an all-in-one package. And I really like having the ability to just pull up and range what I want to see right then and there. And so it allows me to quickly assess my target and figure out if I can make the shot. And if I'm in a timbered situation, I can pull up and range it. Okay, I don't even need to dial, right? It's only 70 yards. I can make that shot freehand, or maybe I should sit down for this one. So it's really nice having range-finding binoculars. I think for a lot of people, they're going to find this useful. I think if you're an archery hunter, you might just get away with using like something like these NL Piers or just a regular binocular, because you're probably going to be pulling out your little handhold a lot more than you're going to be pulling out your binoculars and looking through it to get a better range on something. But if you're a rifle hunter and you want an all-in-one package, the technology on these is awesome. It hooks up to your phone. I can put 3 different rifles into this particular binocular. So I can have my dope for 3 different rifles. And yeah, so I pretty much have, my practice rifle in here, my 6.5 PRC, and then my 7 PRC if I want to use that. And everything's in here, and I can switch it around on my phone or work through the menu. I just really like these. I've also heard Leica and Zeiss rangefinders are really good, and German Precision Optic. The one thing that I miss about SIG, right? The SIG rangefinder had the Kilo 5K. I don't use SIG anymore just because their warranty was trash. I didn't want to deal with them again if they're not going to fix something if I'm willing to pay. It's just me personally. Like I said, you can still like their products and be their fanboy. I don't care. I still have friends that bought some of my stuff from me, even though they saw my videos. So whatever. But these are good out to about 1,500 yards, and even 13 to 15 to 1,600, they kind of struggle. Whereas like my buddy would point his SIGs like, 2 miles. It seemed like he'd range like 2,400 yards. And I'm like, these won't do that. But at the same time, I'm not going to be taking shots, over like 500 yards. So this is within my range. I just like sometimes to be able to assess how far the distance is to, that ridge top over there. And these won't always do it. But for most situations, they're going to be great. These are a premium price. And these can range anywhere from like, $1,000. Some of them I've even seen for like 300 or 400. They're probably going to be really cheap, some of the Chinese ones. But these are like 3,500 to 3,800 now, depending on the overall magnification you want on them. And yeah, they're really expensive, but there's a plethora of them. With the rangefinding binoculars, you're going to lose in overall image quality a little bit. But like I said, with the top of the line here, I haven't really noticed that much of a difference between this and the NLPers. So like I said, I'm selling these and keeping these because I use these all the time now because of the range finding capability. It's handy. But if I wasn't a hunter and I wanted the best glass possible, I would just go with a regular binocular, and I wouldn't need a range-finding binocular, but I'm a hunter. So let's wrap this up with image stabilizing binoculars. Now, these are the Sig Sauer Zulu 6s. Very underwhelming, overhyped, in my opinion. And if you're a hunter, these are the only things that exist on the market. But if you're a birder or someone who's been into optics and binoculars for a long time, you probably know that image stabilization has been around since the 90s. I think Canon came out with their first image stabilizing binocular in 97. There's also Fujinon. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I haven't never tried them, but I've heard they've had pretty good image stabilizing binoculars. There's a lot of different brands out there. Nikon makes some. So they're probably actually better than these because they've been doing it for a long time. I know SIG doesn't even make these, and that's why they couldn't fix them for me. And that's also the reason why I won't be using SIG, is because they make products or they sell products that they don't make and they can't fix, which I think is dumb. If you're a company producing something, you should not just slap your name on it. You should be making it yourself, or at least hiring people that know how to make it, or at least being able to send it back to the people that make it so they can fix it. I don't know. But that's just my opinion. I don't manufacture things. I'm just an end user. And when I'm an end user buying something and spending money on something, I want a great customer service experience and a great product. Now, these are really awesome. And if you watch my videos, you know that they're really awesome in basically regular daytime situations. They perform about the same as a pocket binocular as far as their overall brightness and optical clarity. Now, obviously, these are actually way better than these, but when you get into something like this, they're probably going to perform similar as far as their low light capabilities, because they only have like a 2.6 millimeter exit pupil. They have a very shallow field of view, and they are pretty much overall just an underwhelming optic. However, if you are looking to, use them for archery, so you're doing competitions and you're constantly on the move, or you're using them for shed hunting and you're on the move, you're up on a hill, or you just want to carry them without a tripod and you want to use them in the car, so you leave your car running and you want a stable image, these are awesome. I have spotted things that I have not spotted hand holding my binoculars out the car window or on the move. I have spotted things with these over using something like these that I would have never saw using these because of the image stabilization. So that is cool. But I will say that there are so many other options on the market besides SIG. So I'd highly recommend, and I'm going to do it myself, but I'd highly recommend you look into something like Canon, right? Everyone loves Canon glass. Like, I would think that they probably make really good glass. So it's kind of interesting. The image quality isn't as great as something like a true binocular. And I would say that a binocular on a tripod still beats these hands down. But if the technology ever got better, I think they would be great. But yeah, the way these work, if you put them on a tripod, the gimbal actually kind of fights with the tripod, especially if it's really windy. So these definitely are meant for hand holding, and they excel in on the move glassing and glassing from the road out of a side-by-side or truck. I think these are the road hunting machines, but they do not replace anything like any of these on a tripod. So if you want the best overall image, mount a regular pair of binoculars on the tripod and you're going to be stable. However, if you want to be on the move and constantly glassing and you don't want a tripod, definitely look into something like this. But I would definitely encourage you to look into things other than SIG, and honestly just go with the company that has the best warranty that's going to take care of you no matter what. But if you're a fanboy, you can always check out SIG. I will be selling these too, by the way, so check out my eBay or my website, and if they're on there, they're still for sale. So that's a wrap. I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover here in this video, so I hope this information was helpful. If you did find it helpful, please like and subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. Also, leave a comment below. If you got some feedback for me, if you thought I did a good job, if you thought I did a bad job, if you just want to yell at me, or if you want to correct me, leave a comment below and I'll get back to you. Also, remember to stay connected to the wild. Nature is good for you, so get out there and enjoy it. And then once again, my name is Chris with Ignited by Nature, and until next time, guys and gals.